Okay, so for this next part of this essay, we're going to talk about the ANS, or the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system can be broken down into two categories. We have the sympathetic nervous system, and that is this section right here, all the blue lines. And then in the red lines, we have our parasympathetic nervous system. And so as we know that, we'll go into each little subdivision of each. So we'll start with the sympathetic nervous system. So with this sympathetic nervous system, there's different things we need to know. So this right here is part of the CNS, so the spine and the brain. So we're not going to really worry about that. But what we're going to worry about is the peripheral nervous system. And so this right here that I'm circling is part of the sympathetic nervous system. And the things that I just circled are synapses. And these synapses occur in the sympathetic chain ganglia. And so this right here as well is the sympathetic chain ganglia. The difference is over here, all these are your spinal nerves, and over here are your sympathetic nerves. And if we look, it also synapses in a different place, like further away, and this is what you call your collateral ganglia, and these happen below the diaphragm. So I'll just draw this green line that shows the diaphragm, and it goes, and with that, we have, with the collateral ganglia, there's the splanchnic nerves. And so the splanchnic nerves are these lines that come away from the collateral ganglia. But as you can see, there's this one neuron that goes, and it doesn't synapse in the collateral ganglia, and it goes right into this organ right here. That is what you call an adrenal medulla. And one thing that I forgot to mention before we got into this is a big difference between the autonomic nervous system and the somatic nervous system is the autonomic nervous system has two neurons where the somatic has one. And so we have here, let me circle it. So right here, for example, is one neuron, and then another's here. And the difference between the dashed line and the solid line is the solid line has myelin around its neuron, and these dashed lines do not. And so to go back to what we were talking about with the ganglia, so this is the collateral ganglia, which has the splanchnic nerves, and then the adrenal medulla. And that is for the sympathetic nervous system. And so now if we go over here to the parasympathetic nervous system, this right here is called the craniosacral. And the most important one you need to know is right here, this vagus nerve. And so the vagus nerve produces 75 to 80% of all the synapses for the rest and digest system. And one more thing, the sympathetic nervous system takes place between it starts at T1 and it goes to L2. So some important things that we need to know for each of the autonomic nervous systems so the PNS, or we'll start with the SNS, the sympathetic nervous system. And we're going to talk about the different pathways that it can take to reach a receptor. And so this first one is, I'll draw this neuron here, and then it will synapse, and then we'll hit its target. And so the target for this one are the heart, there's smooth muscle, and then glands. So what happens is it goes, and right here, when it synapses, it will release all this ACH, which is acetylcholine, and it'll go, and there's this little channel, which we'll call N2. We'll go and release more, and then we'll get down here, and and epinephrine. And these different receptors are alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 2, and beta 3. And these right here are called adrenergic receptors. And so we'll draw another one right here, another neuron. Then we'll synapse, we'll release ACH, and we'll hit this neuron. And then you draw with no myelin. We'll also have this N2. And this time it'll release ACH again, but this time its target are generalized sweat glands. And so the last one with the sympathetic nervous system is we'll just have one neuron, and then it will release ACH. Oh, let me back up. This right here is M3. And then this is our adrenal medulla. And this is just N2. So this will release epinephrine and norepinephrine into the blood vessels. And this receptor up here is called a cholinergic receptor. And so then if we have, now we'll go to the parasympathetic nervous system. This will just have one, and it'll go here. And then this time its target is going to be the same as this first one, with heart, smooth muscle, and then glands. And so this one will go, and it'll synapse, release ACH, and then it'll go to the N2, it'll go and release some more ACH, and this time it has muscarinic receptors, M1 through M5. So those are the four main things and some major receptors that we need to know for different organs and stuff. Is we'll first have the lung, which is going to be beta 1, or let me back up. That's going to be beta 2, and the heart is going to be beta 1. And then we have sweat glands, which is M1. But if they're in the palms of hand and the bottom of feet, that will be alpha 1, which is also our blood vessels, our alpha 1. Then for this next one, I'll draw a picture. So this is the eye. In the middle, we have the pupil. And the pupil is a constrictor. And that's going to be M3. And then on the outside, we have these things called the radial. And that's going to be alpha 1 as well. And that wraps up this question for this essay.